Welcome to Master B2B, the world's first and only webinar series. We're taking on the key issues for manufacturers and distributors in a debate style format. We're going to have some fun today. We're talking about conversion rate. My name is Brian Beck. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Andy Hoare again. Andy is a leader in B2B e-commerce, a thought leader, 7 years in B2B e-commerce at Forrester Research, a long career before that. And today he's the CEO of Paradigm B2B. Releasing some awesome research. We'll talk about that a little later. Andy, great to be here again with you today.
Yeah, great to be here as well. And what did you tell me, the phrase that you said, not to be outdone? Is that what you told me to say?
Is that yeah, I think that's what I said. Mm-hmm.
Not to be outdone. Brian Beck is here today as well. So Brian, for those who don't know, Brian, he's a 20-year e-commerce veteran. He was a practitioner for many years on both the B2C side and the B2B side. He's been a consultant. And he's the author of a great book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce. I highly recommend it. And he'd even paid me to say that. So Brian, great to be here.
That's right, Andy. Well, hey, we've got a great topic today. We're talking again about conversion rate. But folks, this is a debate. We want you to weigh in. During this debate, you're going to have a chance to vote at the end of each one of our 3 rounds. And at the very end of our session today, we'll reveal the winner of the debate. So stick around for that. Really excited to see that. So Andy, hot topic, right? Conversion rate. Should B2B companies use that as a measure of success as they're, aligning their teams and really setting marching orders for everyone? And, as a 17-year veteran, Andy, I live this myself. If you're aligning your teams around the incorrect metrics, you're not going to get the result you want. It's kind of like the North Star. And, I've used conversion rate, and I'm leaning towards conversion rate as you're going to tell here today, and that's my team today. And I really do think it's a metric that's critical as we move into this. So, and I think the industry agrees. I mean, we have 2 fantastic teams that are joining the debate today. We'll introduce them in a few minutes. But as usual, Andy, we did our post on LinkedIn on social. We got over 6,000, I think about 6,500 views, likes, shares, and comments, and we got people joining here today. Again, it's the who's who. We've got Brady Corporation here, Caterpillar's here, Keysight, Konica Minolta. I see Sonapar's here. Sarah's here from Eaton Corporation. Sarah Dwyer. Hi, Sarah. Zebra Technologies is on. Who are you seeing, Andy, joining?
Yeah, I'm looking here. I'm seeing Ricky Hernandez from Avery Products.
Yeah, hey,
Carlos Camacho from Boston Scientific. Sylvia Popka from Snap-on. And more. So we've got a who's who, as always.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, we posed the question on LinkedIn, the question of the debate, which is conversion rate the true measures of success in B2B, or are there other metrics? And it ends up being a misleading place to emphasize. And, I think a couple of quotes, Andy, I just want to, from some of our practitioners, the folks in our community of B2B e-commerce folks, Stacy Hanks, who thank you, Stacy, for joining today too. She's the VP of Global Digital Commerce at SureWorks. She thinks conversion rate is important, but not the only metric, right? So this goes to kind of your argument. She says, I want to answer both, right? When we ask the question, conversion is a great high-level metric to report outside of e-com in particular, if you have a consistent enough history with your products. But any good e-com leader knows that there are another 4 to 8 metrics that must be managed to really understand conversion rate. Interesting perspective. One other I want to read from one of our former contenders, Andy, is Colin Cronin. He's the director of e-com at Leisha Biosystems. He called into question one of the core issues here. He said, it can be hard to clearly define conversion rate in B2B, where you likely have a similar set or smaller set of customers that can interact with you in a variety of different purchasing paths. Is it purely a digital metric? Does it take into account cross-channel interactions? Great point, Colin. Again, thank you for joining us today. This is really a key issue, Andy. So when you look at this, why don't you frame it up a little bit for us, Mr. Data Man, and tell us, define for us what the issues are. Go ahead.
I need a cape for that as Data Man.
Data Man. I think you should have that as your cape. Yes, your costume. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's take a look at a couple of slides here with you together. So really, this is a discussion about the top of the funnel, the classic marketing funnel, versus the bottom of the funnel. Conversion generally lives at the bottom of the funnel. And it is kind of metric where people can point to it and say, look, this was the success we had. We got this number of people who bought. It's very closely tied to revenue and, if done well, profitability. So it's a popular metric in that regard. However, there's another school of thought that really the top of the funnel measures and metrics matter as much, if not more, because garbage in, garbage out. You don't get high quality leads if you don't score them well. The conversion rate can be deceptive. Some other people pointed out too that you may have a marketing campaign that's maybe not quite as focused or targeted, and you drive a lot of denominator like calculations, which we'll get to in a moment, and it screws with the conversion rate, not through any fault of the conversion rate, but because of the quality and quantity of the traffic. So there are a couple of schools of thought, and there's still yet another piece here, which is on the other side of the funnel, which you don't often see. But if you could take the funnel and then go to the bottom after conversion rate, which is more longitudinal measures like customer lifetime value and things like, customer satisfaction scoring. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But just as a reminder, when we say conversion rate, this is generally what we're talking about. Now, there have been books written about stuff like this, so there will be debate, but just for the purposes of today's discussion, you can see it as a simple mathematical formula. It's really the number of conversions, which is sales, transactions, over the number of visits. Now, there's debate over whether the visit is a page visit, is it a unique visit? That's another discussion for another day. But this is how people generally calculate conversion rate. Like I said, though, there's some debate about whether other measures matter more. In fact, that's the name of one of the teams, the right team, the one I'm on this time. And so you can see on the next slide that, there are metrics such as share of wallet, which is really just the amount of spent on a particular product divided by the total amount spent in the category. There's some interesting questions about this one, though, and some of our practitioners weighed in on this online. But one of the questions here about the denominators, how do you measure that? How do you get that information? How do you know it's accurate? So there are some issues around share of wallet, but it is a very popular metric for sure. Couple others here, customer satisfaction metrics. I mean, there's some kind of classic ones like the CSAT scoring, but NPS is popular. Everything has its flaws. I don't want to make it sound like there's one true metric here. And then some more unconventional ones like customer effort scoring. But some people say, look, this is the most important metric, focusing on customer satisfaction. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this, which is what this debate is all about. But in the end, the reason we're having this debate is because of things like customer lifetime value. That's what everybody wants to measure. Now, again, this is an entire other discussion. This is a longitudinal one. You got to do it over the course of time. There are things like churn that are involved in this. People heavily involved in this kind of thing know that it is not easy at all to accurately measure customer lifetime value. But this is the goal, is to get to something like this. But why? Well, the why is because, and I've always loved this quote from Peter Drucker. This is way back in 1954. So almost 70 years ago. He was right then and he's right now. And he said, what gets measured gets managed. I've seen so many different versions of this quote, but it's accurate because, like you said at the very top, Brian, if you don't measure the right thing, you're probably not going to be successful because you're focused in the wrong area. So this is a really critical debate.
No question. And, Andy, I'd encourage the folks who are listening, and as you're thinking about your votes, think about, in my experience, conversion rate is an indicator of all the really success across all the metrics. So in my experience, I've seen it, if you're focused there, helping to lift some of those other metrics as well, versus some of Andy's happy metrics, so the ones he just shared. So we'll have the debate, guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. We have some awesome, that was a great setup, Andy. Thank you. We have some awesome contenders joining us today, and we call our folks contenders, not panelists, because they are fighting for a cause here. So my team is the conversion rate team, and we're going to talk about why conversion rate rules and why it is an important measure and the measure to focus on. The first one on my team is Rob, the Hacksaw Howell. Rob, welcome. He is a wicked smart contender. He cuts through that crap. Wow, I like this description here, Rob. To build breakthrough e-commerce operations. He's the SVP at $4 billion building products distributor foundation, building materials. He knows that conversion rate is really a galvanizing force. He says conversion is hands down the best way to focus team efforts, gain alignment, and communicate success to the CEO and board. Rob, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
All right. And I hear TSA absconded with your hacksaw. Is that true?
Yeah, tried to bring the hacksaw through and was given a stern reminder that they're not allowed on board. So next
man. All right. Well, good try. I like the spirit. All right. Our next contender on team conversion rate is Brian, the Mauler McGlynn. Mauler. All right. Let's maul him up there, Brian. This digital veteran masters mauls mediocre arguments masterfully. That's a mouthful. Say that 10 times. Brian serves as the general manager of Coveo. It's an industry-leading personalization and search solution. He's got 20 years of digital on his side, guys. He's a heavyweight. He believes that B2B companies that concentrate on conversion as their core metric exceed their peers in digital success every time. Brian, welcome.
Great to be here, and hopefully we can preach some of the converted. Those
All right.
who don't convert by force, well,
he's going Jerry Springer on us, Andy. I love it. All right, go ahead and introduce your team.
Well, he's going to need it because you're clearly going to lose today. So on the winning team, other metrics matter more, or other measures matter more. We've got Catherine the Cobra Chen. So this digital diva knows the secret to creating success in B2B commerce, and it isn't focusing on conversion rate, Brian. A veteran of Granger and currently at a company called Wolseley, which is it's a powerhouse in the HVAC space. She's the director of digital e-business there. And she says e-commerce conversion rate woefully underestimates the impact that digital has on the business. So interestingly enough, she's saying that, hey, it's maybe a good digital metric, but not even the best digital metric. So Catherine, welcome.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here. And Brian, I don't know, today might be the day that you're outdone. So get ready.
I don't know. All right, Catherine, keep it up.
And rounding out the team is Mark the Pugilist Pickett. Don't mess with this Marine. The pugilist pummels pathetic points with ease as the VP of digital growth at $3 billion distributor MSC Industrial. And he's come prepared. Look, he's suiting up as we speak. A veteran of Staples, Sears, and KPMG, Mark brings 2 decades of digital experience to the fight and says, digital executives beware. Concentrate on conversion rate at your own risk. The focus is short-sighted and can cost you your job. I don't know about you. I don't want to mess with this guy. He's got a football helmet on, and I think he's got gloves too. So I'm glad he's on my team.
Thanks, Andy. Brian, well, I think you already know what's about to happen.
Oh, man.
Happy to be here.
I love the helmet, man. It's awesome. All right, Andy, I think it's about that time. Are you ready? Let's rumble. Ring the bell. There it is. Andy, I'm going to keep time. Go for it.
All right, let's jump right in. Let's get right to the hot topic, which is conversion rate the most important success metric in B2B e-commerce? Let's go to conversion rate rules first. Let's go to you first, Mr. Rob Howell, the hacksaw. What say you?
All right, Andy. I would argue that at the end of the day, we're all in the making it easier to do business. And we're also tasked with growing sales and improving margin, regardless of the industry or whether you're in commerce or marketing. And that's why measuring conversion is really one of the best ways to measure how well, specifically how efficiently you're able to do those things.
All right, short and sweet and to the point. So Mr. McGlynn, the Mauler, before you throw the chair, give us your thoughts.
I'll throw the chair in a minute, guys, but got to see how this goes. Conversion rate. You look at it, conversion rate, it's a measure of efficiency. That dictates what your digital spend goes into. Ultimately, all of that to attract customers and bring that in. How efficient you are at your stages inside of your B2B commerce funnel is going to yield sales, profitability, margin. But it all comes down to how efficient that is. That's the competitive secret.
Okay, well, let's now hear the correct side of the argument. Let's go to Mark. And Mark, why are they wrong? Why is conversion rate not the best metric? And in fact, there are other measures that are in fact better.
Surely, absolutely. I like those guys, but they're wrong. I think when we look at conversion rate, it's what I consider to be the gateway drug into every other metric, right? So we're looking at conversion rate, and rapidly what happens next is it the top of funnel or the bottom of the funnel, right? So now we have to start discussing where are these micro conversions taking place. There's so many other pieces to what is conversion rate or what creates the conversion rate. Traffic quality. Are they actually converting in the bottom of the funnel as it relates to the traffic sources and the unique visitors. So many different elements to it that it just simply by itself is akin to saying, how much revenue do we make this week, right? Well, there's a whole explanation that comes with it. So I'm about to put the helmet back on.
Yeah, wow. I was like, that's fairly tame. I thought, he's calmed himself down, but it might be rope-a-dope. He
It's
might be
rope-a-dope.
drawing people
It's rope-a-dope. We're not buying it. It's rope-a-dope.
Well, Catherine, let's get you in on this one. You have a thought too here.
Yeah, got to agree with Mark for sure. Conversion rate, critical metric, but can't be looked at in isolation, right? So there's so many other factors. Andy, you showed some of those at the opening of this session. We also look at from a operational perspective, reduced cost to serve, the productivity increases that we see. There's metrics all around that. We even look at what we call, self-serve events. So the number of times and the frequency that users can self-serve online. And so it goes beyond e-commerce, right? But there's obviously an engagement play there. And those are other metrics that we also pay attention to. Excellent.
Well said. Okay, so let's go to the next question. We've won the first question, of course. Brian, we'll give you a chance here. Can conversion rate be measured effectively cross-channel? Now, this is really important because conversion rate right now, as we showed in the slide, is sort of perceived to be a single channel, digital channel only metric. Let's hear what some people have to say about this, but let's go with the other measures matter more team first. And let's go to you first, Catherine. Let's continue with you. Can it be measured effectively across channel?
So I'm going to say no. And if anyone's figured it out, please let me know. I think it's one of the most difficult things right now, right? So we know that so many people, especially in the B2B world, they are initiating their purchase journey online. They're doing their research online, and then they are completing their purchase in an offline channel. So it could be through an outside sales rep, an inside sales rep. They could be stopping into a branch. They could be sending an email. The reality is this research is happening online. The conversion, the end conversion or the end purchase is happening offline. I have not figured out how to connect the dots. And so much to that, there was actually just a discussion this morning where we had a customer start an order online, probably very, very common, then call in, right, to negotiate a price and to talk about, a quantity buy and things like that. Well, for the person at the counter or the inside sales rep to actually address that question, they currently, with our current systems, they don't have visibility to that, pending in progress order. So what are they doing? They're initiating a brand new order at the counter. So we've ultimately severed that tie, right, between the initial lead. So again, I think it's very challenging. If anyone has the answer, I'm all ears.
So attribution is not easy. Why don't you wrap it up for us, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's where it is about attribution, and it may not show up as an event that's taking place in a specific channel, but if you measure it in terms of customer contact or engagement with the brand wholesale, right? And if you look at that holistically, I think then you can say, okay, well, in that case, we touched or we've engaged with X amount of customers this week or this month or this whatever quarter. And of those that we engaged with directly through other means, we've activated them in several channels or in other ways that are offline. We've measured their propensity to either purchase or with the intent to purchase. We can see what that looks like. So I don't know that you can measure it, to Catherine's point, in isolation by itself, saying that, hey, chat produces X amount of revenue for us in terms of these convertible events, but rather when we look at it from a customer standpoint in terms of customer engagement, right, with the brand overall and how have we touched them, I think then you get to your answer, which is we're converting X amount of customers that we touch, no matter the channel.
Well, let's give Brian McGlynn and Rob Howe a chance to tell us a little bit more about how they handle the cross-channel dimension related to conversion rates. So let's go to you first, Brian. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think if you look at it all together, I think Mark made a good point on that. I mean, from where we're at, going across multiple channels, you think about it from all the way from purchase, all the way through to support, all the way through at various different components that's in there. And ultimately, I come back to conversion rate as a measure of efficiency. You can look at it from a digital perspective. You can look at it from an overall ad spend perspective, where what it is to bring people into stores, bring people into branches at this point as well. Ultimately, there is an efficiency measurement to go into it at this point. So whether even from a vector What's the efficiency of self-help? You can look at the conversion rate of people finding their answer versus actually going in. We've looked at it from self-help efficiency or call deflection in many cases as well. So these are the sorts of measures we look at. They certainly go in, but ultimately it's that level of efficiency of what your goal is and how you hit that. And from there, it can be an aggregate across channel, absolutely. But it's certainly attribution is what comes in.
We got 40 seconds left. So Rob, take us home on this one. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think there is some level of agreement that, cross-channel attribution or quantifying digitally influenced revenue is a challenge, especially when there's multiple stakeholders at the B2B table. But I guess I would draw a distinction between the on and the offline in the sense that if you're going to a branch, chances are you need something that day. And so your conversion rate likely should be higher unless you're like me and you need to go to Lowe's 3 times to complete just about any, project at home. Multiple visits, building a cart over the course of a day or a week is not uncommon in B2B, but you better have the accurate inventory and accurate pricing and everything ready to rock and roll when your customers hit your branch. So it's a different standard depending on, the channel, but it's, I'm with Catherine on, if anybody sorted out, perfect model for cross-channel attribution, let me know.
Well, we're seeing
Andy.
comments. Yeah, we seem to be getting comments on that very issue about cross-channel attribution. So Brian, I think that wraps up round 1.
It does. Let's go ahead and go to the poll question, Robert. So go ahead and pop that one. Yeah, Matt Lendo said, hey, there's never just one metric. The digital commerce channel may just be top of funnel, as Catherine observes. Thanks for that comment, Matt. Andy, I've got 2 kind of. So
it should be the question, right? So is conversion rate the most important success metric in B2B commerce? Yes or no? So do your voting while you're voting. Brian,
yes.
What'd you think?
I have 2 points. Well, great debate. I mean, these are the points, right? So I have 2 points to make here. First is, I believe that that conversion rate is tightly tied to other metrics, and you can drive yourself crazy, Andy, trying to measure everything. If you're doing a good job with conversion, I think you're going to see those other metrics come into pass. The second is, listen, I think we have to broaden the measure of conversion. I mean, the pugilist Pickett said it. He said it himself. He said it's a gateway drug into every other metric. I believe that. I think we have to broaden it and look at attribution. And guys, the way I've seen that done is really through CRM, right? In looking at the metric, like for example, Catherine's example, when the person is in the branch and buying. Well, if we have a CRM system that's measuring and tying those transactions back together, that's something that can help us understand that it's a digitally influenced sale, right? These are going to be a lot of, in B2B, we have a lot of logged in customers, right? This is why I'm going to continue to argue that conversion rate is something that's critical for you to focus on as your leading metric, because if you're doing a good job at removing friction, if you're doing a good job at closing the loop and understanding that attribution, it's going to help you tune all kinds of aspects in your business. I won't reveal the rest of my arguments there yet, Andy, but there's other things I think it really helps you do better on when you focus on conversion. But what did you think?
I'm just going to a couple quick points on the attribution issue. I thought on LinkedIn, Eric Nebbia from Masterlock, Jay Schneider, they all said the same thing, which attribution is the holy grail of digital marketing efforts. Not easy to do, but if somebody can crack that code, and there are a lot of people who have tried, and it's not impossible, but it is challenging. That's an important issue. But I want to say one thing. Richard Isaac from Real Decoy shared some thoughts with me about this. And he made a really good point. He's like, forget about multi or cross-channel attribution. What about single-channel attribution? In particular, what if somebody were to browse on a B2B website, find 2 things they want to buy the first, put the second one in the cart and let it sit there for a couple of days or get approval? How do you measure that conversion? What caused that? Or as people pointed out, what if somebody goes into a branch and buys it, but it's still sitting in their cart? I mean, I think single channel attribution is difficult because in a B2B environment, a lot of these things are group purchases. So I think that's also worth considering here. Just tying activity to a purchase in general is difficult. So conversion rate to me is a problematic metric because it's hard to measure.
Yeah, well, we solved it with coupon codes. Unique coupon codes at Harbor Freight Tools 15 years ago, Andy. So I don't know. I mean, CRM is the answer, I think. But we got to go to next round. So let's go ahead and bring up the round 2 bell. Ding, ding, ding. Thank you. This one's mine. Here we're going to be talking about using search to predict buying intent in B2B e-commerce. And we're going to bring conversion rate into the debate too here. Conversion rate is all about the manifestation of buyer intent. So, and is search a signal? Our first question is, can B2B sellers successfully predict buyer intent just from search inquiries? And we're going to go to team conversion rate rules here first. And Mr. McGlynn, the mauler, I want to direct this question your way. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is me clearly. We built a business on it, and it's an area where we look at search based on the question. You can get a good sense for the type of question, what someone's looking at. Are they searching for information? Have they looked at it? What have they viewed on? What have they clicked on? What have they engaged on? And based on that, it's absolutely, we can look at it with, as we say, AI gets things less wrong in a lot of cases. We can get good views on where it comes in and someone's intent.
A good measure of eliminating friction for sure, in my opinion. So, Mr. Hacksaw, even though you forgot your hacksaw, you have some good examples here too. You want to weigh in?
Sure. Yeah. So I absolutely think that search can be a great predictor of buyer intent because, looking back at stints in wine and spirits and in aerospace, start with wine and spirits, our customers were most often searching by brand and size, very clearly expressing what they were seeking out. And then in aerospace, it was even more specific, where they may be looking for a specific part number, an SKU. Sometimes it was even a superseded part, right? So we knew what they were looking for, and reducing the friction meant, presenting the right product or an alternative that was available and in stock. But maybe I'll close by saying, regardless of whether you're buying an airplane part or a beautiful bottle of old world wine, B2B customers are most often buying. They're not shopping. And so that's where search and being really precise and predicting intent really matters.
All right, good point. Thank you, Mr. Hacksaw. Okay, let's go to the team. Other measures matter more, and let's go to the pugilist first. Mr. Pickett, what say you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a case to be made. I think Rob and Brian made it in terms of search and its value. But to measure intent specifically by virtue of search, I think it's sort of like it's one of those things. It's a bit of a conundrum, right? Because everyone that's actually searching isn't necessarily intending to purchase, certainly not in that moment, which goes back to conversion. But secondarily, there's other reasons why you would be searching, right? You could be obviously you're trying to find something. We, as an example, MSC, we have over 2 million SKUs, right? Mm-hmm. So there's intention in terms of what you're searching for and what you're trying to find, but it might be to list build, or it may be to, preserve for another period. What we've been trying to do at MSC is decipher what exactly is the signal that says that they're looking to build a list for comparison shopping, maybe, or they're simply just doing some research on a product by itself, right? Because they don't know what a magnetic drill press that's 3/4 inch chuck on it, like they may not understand that, right? And they're trying to figure out what's the best one to do.
But Mr. Pugilist, what do they do with that list? Do they buy?
Well, that's my point there, sir. So I'm saying that list may be for research purposes. It may be to comparison shop.
Okay.
Right. And that happens all the time.
Fair point.
And you have to figure that out. And there are things that can help you figure out whether or not they're looking at comparison shop, by the way. So, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's go to the Cobra Chen. Cobra Chen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll just, take it a step further. I think Mark is exactly right that you can't just look at search as the buying intent. I think we know, again, as we mentioned in the first round, right, lots of people are searching, they're doing research. In many cases, in our business in particular, the one doing the research may not be the one making the final decision, right? It could be a contractor doing research or a designer doing research, but then the homeowner is going to make the decision. So perhaps they're, the user at the time on the site is building a quote or an estimate to present to an end user. So it's not, I don't think it's enough to show intent. The other thing too, though, the type of search, right? So if we talk about part number search, people keying in an exact part number, likely there's an intention to buy there. They know exactly the part that they want. But if they're doing a broad keyword search, or they're starting to navigate through the product categories, and they're effectively, browsing or shopping, as some of the comments have noted, then I think, again, like you just can't assume the intent there just from that type of behavior.
Interesting. No, good points, guys. I think both, there's arguments both ways. So some of us have been in e-commerce for all of us have for a long time, argue that, there's value in inserting product recommendations into the journey, in merchandising is what we used to call it in the retail side, which is merchandising search results. And that's a way to deliver a better digital experience. But, when we think about, search, is it better to, practice really a better practice just to focus on eliminating friction from the cycle versus trying to guess what buyers want? So let's go over to Mr. Pickett, pugilist, first on this question about, what's a better way to deliver a digital experience here?
Absolutely. It's about removing friction. You can tackle the other elements later, right? You can improve your ability to produce a quantifiably accurate search. But the truth of the matter is that friction can absolutely off-ramp the entire experience, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen this in a number of different places, not to mention them by name, but when you have a very poor experience in general, that is friction, right? And the more friction you add to the process for purchase or for research or for any intent that the buyer is coming, or the researcher, or the type of persona that's coming, to any friction that's created is going to off ramp that experience, right? And that it creates its own set of problems going forward. So I believe in that first. You start there, make sure that you meet the customer where they are and helping them accomplish what they need to do. If you can do that first, the rest of it should flow, right? Okay. Ideally. So
Corbett Chen, anything to add to that?
No, I'm with Mark. I think, absolutely need to reduce friction on the way. But then, the other metrics that we think about, how do we look at increasing average order value? Previous life, we used to always talk about the idea of how do you get the customer to add a line? So I think, removing friction for sure, but at the same time, understanding who your customer is and starting to personalize that journey, and providing relevant opportunities, I think, is also important.
But can't you use conversion rate to measure whether or not you're introducing too much friction into the cycle around the product recommendations? Anyway, Mr. Howell, let's give our other team a chance to respond here. We got about 40 seconds left. Rob Hacksaw, what do you say?
Yeah, so as a member of the efficiency rules team, or the conversion rate rules team, I should say, we talked a lot about removing efficiency. So I'm going to say something that may be a little controversial, but there's a point at which we can potentially make things too efficient, especially if we've got objectives around cross-selling and upselling. And I'd imagine every single person around the ring here and in the audience probably has goals like that. And so it's maybe less about removing all friction, and it's more about the right amount. So we're producing light instead of heat.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And Mr. Mahler McGlynn, you guys have built an entire huge business on this whole product recs and search and personalization. What say you? Any quick closing remarks before we go to the poll?
Yeah, I think you look at it from conversion. Conversion is really a couple of areas, right? We remove friction from what clients would see at this point, certainly to get to the right answers. If we can detect the intent, if they're getting that around there. At the same time, we detect buying signals. There's opportunities to recommend other replacement products. A lot of our clients have come in where, especially with supply chain constraints and other parts, can we use recommendations as a way to get people in and really not necessarily upsell, but to actually help close the deal and convert more by part of the experience that's out there as well. So it comes down to, it's an important measure, and it certainly can go into by the ad dollar spent, going back in using search and recs to ultimately do what the customer's intending to do.
Yep. No, that's great. So I think we need to go to our poll question. Let's go ahead and bring that up, Robert. And the question is, can B2B sellers successfully predict buyer intent just from search inquiries? Yes or no? And Andy, we had a few comments come in. Stephen Jawar said, hey, long tail search may provide more insight. Stephen from Schneider. Bill Carrier said, hey, when was the last time a customer typed a question in on a B2B e-commerce site? Interesting comments. What are your thoughts, Andy, on that debate?
Well, I like how Brian phrased it. I'm going to go, I'm going to jump over to the other side for a second.
All right.
That AI makes it less wrong. And I think that's a good way to phrase it. I think it's an open question about how accurate, AI is in producing producing search intent, identifying search intent, but it's inarguable that it does. It is clearly the case. This has been proven quantitatively that this software is actually doing a pretty good job of identifying people's intent. Where it's complicated in B2B is that you have multiple buyers, you have different channels. It gets harder to do that in B2B than I think it is perhaps in B2C. But like Stephen Javor did make that point about the long tail, and I think that's right. I mean, it depends on what product it is, depends on what circumstance it is, but it isn't a question of the software, it's more the circumstance.
So this is another part of my argument here, Andy. So I think, and yeah, thank you for that, Stephen. I think we can use conversion rate as a great metric here as well. Now, here, let me throw out a benchmark for all to be thinking about. In e-commerce, your conversion rate from search should be something like 5 times the conversion rate of other channels. People that just come to your site, and just sort of search and don't use and navigate, don't use search. So we think about conversion rate as a directional North Star. You can then take conversion. You can take this metric and you can break it down by customer segment, new versus returning. How are they converting? We'll talk about, top of funnel in a minute. You can apply conversion to almost any scenario, and it will tell you how well you're doing in removing friction and delivering a great customer experience. Now, Andy, to your point, though, we do have to broaden the definition. So I think that's important. And the attribution question is a big one. We need to go to our next round. So let's go ahead and roll the bell. Round 3. Here we go. All right, Andy, this one's yours. I'm going to keep time for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we want to kind of tackle the top of the funnel question here, which is, doesn't generating quality traffic to begin with matter more when converting the traffic? So it was the point I made at the beginning, like if you're focused on the conversion rate and you're not focused on lead scoring, seeing the quality of the traffic coming in, aren't you focused in the wrong area? I guess that would be the argument of the other measures matter more team. So let's go to Mark first on this one. Mark, you mentioned this yourself. I mean, do you think a fixation on conversion rate is actually wrong-headed and that you should be more focused on stuff higher up in the funnel?
Yeah, and I don't even believe we have a debate about this, to be quite honest, right? Like this is one of these the top of funnel metric by itself is really going to help you understand the quality of the traffic that you're creating, right? Ideally. There are other things that we could argue about that as well, but it's going to talk to you really about the quality of that traffic. And especially if you're looking at purchase behavior, you'll know immediately whether or not it's working. That's why you see that top of funnel metric being created in the way of add to carts, right? So that's true. But again, right, everything that happens at the top of the funnel is not meant for purchase related activity. Some of it is about leads. Some of it is more of an awareness driver. Depending on how you are crafting your campaigns or what tactics you're using, ideally, you would want to be able to build those with more, build the awareness with more organic channels versus some of your paid channels. So, I mean, my position going forward is, yeah, you have to be really super focused on the quality of traffic that you're driving, depending on what you're expecting to yield from it, right? Either purchase activity in our business or lead activity, which are the two biggest pieces of traffic for us in terms of what we're looking to measure, right?
So, Catherine, I assume you're on board with this. You agree?
Yeah, fully agree. Not really much to add. I think, filling top of funnel with quality leads is how you generate demand, right? And so without that demand, what are we converting on? So I think, again, everything that Mark said is bang on.
Well, let's see what the other team has to say about this. So conversion rate rules. I mean, I'll help you here. At the end of the day, you got to convert. I mean, you can't just generate a bunch of quality leads and have a really bad site experience and not convert anybody. So clearly the conversion rate matters too, doesn't it? Let's go to Brian first on this one.
Yeah, it's all about, and I look at it, certainly we run our own B2B business. I think what we all do, even as a software provider, top of funnel is absolutely important, but it's every stage we look at the entire system. Is there leakage in the system? So if you convert more, some of the parts can do massive amounts. So converting from a lead into a warm lead to a qualified lead and ultimately to a purchase, all those items are in there, and every incremental tweak that you can do, certainly you can have the best quality leads at the top, but if you have a bad conversion process or a leaky conversion process, the efficiency loss is massive throughout the entire system.
Yeah. So Rob, what would you add to this? I mean, you're living and breathing this every day. I mean, it really is a question of resources, right? I mean, in a perfect perfect world, we do all this stuff, right? But you can't do all this stuff. So you've chosen to focus more on the conversion rate because at the end of the day, you got to deliver sales, right?
Right.
So tell us why that matters more to you than say the top of the funnel stuff.
Well, the cost to acquire customers, especially in B2B, can be quite high, right? And measuring efficiency of conversion is a great way to understand how well you're actually, in many cases, selling always to the customers at the bottom of that funnel. But for us, we're constantly looking at how do we continue to convert our more analog customers to a lower cost to serve digital channel. And I think a lot of B2B companies that I've either worked for, consulted to, commiserated with peers with, is everybody is often just trying to convert their existing base of customers in many ways to digital, and that's where conversion is at the bottom of the funnel is even more important than having a really, really large top of funnel.
So let's toss out the funnel metaphor for a moment and go with another way to look at this, which is a journey. And Rob, let's stick with you. So you talked about, I think, quite well about how it is and why it is that you have to focus on conversion. It's expensive. You got at the end of the day, you got to deliver on this. You're going to get fired if you don't convert people, right? I mean, that's what your job is.
That's right.
But how do you participate in the earlier stages of the journey? Tell us a bit more about what you think about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, regardless of industry, we're often going to market with a field sales team, an inside sales team. You've got branches involved, and so I think for us, it's often aligning with everyone that at the end of the day, wherever the conversion happens, it's a win for the company. And as digital leaders, the better that we can stitch together CRM, commerce, marketing, field sales in a way that allows us to execute better is really at the end of the day a win. And so as dodgy as the conversion metric, cross-channel attribution metrics can be, account growth is account growth. And we're just happy to see, the business continue to thrive in that way.
So Brian, let's get you, Brian McGlynn, let's get you a quick thought on this one, and we'll transition to the other team and wrap up the round. So Brian, what are your thoughts on more kind of earlier in the customer journey and where, you recommend people participate, even if you support conversion rate?
Yeah, I think altogether, early in the journey, this is where it really comes down to, it absolutely has a big impact at this point, from looking at it from getting the quality of leads going through and really driving that efficiency. Once again, how well are they being converted? What can be done to use signals to detect at this point buy intent, where somebody may be in a buyer group, what they're looking for at this point, and use that to go in and help convert, even as they're sourcing out information. So from this part, we certainly, when we work with customers, we work with ourselves at this point, we look at it from across the entire buying spectrum, where they are early in the spectrum, really from there, what kind of signals we can get out of it and what we can do to really get them ultimately to that goal. Is it information that they're searching? Are they looking for documentation? Are they looking to buy a part? Are they looking to replace a part? These are all the signals that we can see early on. And really, as we look at it, to get it even approximately right. Well, approximately can be a 30% increase in conversion and 30 or 72% increase in profit, as it may be as well.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point. So just quickly, Catherine and Mark, let's get your thoughts on this. You've been arguing this the whole time, so this should be pretty easy, but give us your final thoughts on, why you think participating earlier in the customer journey matters more than fixating on the customer on conversion rate. So Catherine, you go first, and Mark, you'll bat cleanup.
I think, in a word, right? Like you said, it's a journey, right? And so for us, when we think about it, the journey starts with filling that top of funnel and getting that quality traffic in before, like, understanding, who these customers are, what they're looking for, what their intent is, and then starting to sort of funnel them through the experience online. So, but for sure, if you don't fill that funnel, then who are we passing through and who are we converting at the end of the day?
Yeah, Mark, if you could just tell us quickly, you mentioned, and we talked earlier about, you've had conversations internally with people about an obsession, too much of an obsession with conversion rate. Can you just share quickly what to mention names, but what that conversation has been about and why you're so adamant about focusing on other metrics beyond just conversion rate?
Well, again, I think it's a great diagnostic, right? So I'm going to give some to the other team. Like, it's a great diagnostic. It tells you basically, where you are in a part of your business. But by itself, you're not going to understand necessarily the impact of, if you're in the lead space and scoring, are you actually converting these leads? That happens so far down the path that it's not even worth adding it to a conversion sort of life cycle, or where we think about leads being converted in a traditional digital space. So that's one piece of it. And everyone's intent, again, is not to come to the site. Even though we produce and we sell over 2 million SKUs, everyone showing up on our site is not necessarily intending to purchase, right? That doesn't mean that we're not going to convert them at some other point in time in the future. What it means is that we have to meet them where they are in that moment. And that by itself, if you just look at the amount of traffic that's being created, we may have a really sweet and great piece of content we just produced in the way of our Milmax or something like that, and people are really on it, right? But that's going to impact our traffic. Quality of traffic is going to be great, but it's not going to help us for purchase related behavior. So it's just, again, it's just a gateway drug, right? It's going to give us a quick understanding of what's going on and keep us focused on other arguments within it. So,
well, Mark,
right.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. I love the gateway metaphor. Multiple uses of that. That's awesome. So, Brian, I think that's round 3. So
yeah, that's round 3. That was a good arguments, guys. So let's go ahead and bring up the quote. The question, should B2B e-commerce execs focus more on optimizing top of the funnel activity or bottom of the funnel metrics like conversion rate? That was a great debate there too. A lot of good points. And, as Mark was saying and Catherine was agreeing, the quality of traffic, measuring that, I have found that, and again, this is why I believe so strongly that conversion, if we expand the definition, I'm going to lay out my qualifier there. If we expand the definition for B2B, where we're thinking about conversion, not just online, but across channels, that it is a great measure of the quality of traffic, even if it happens 2 years from now, because that lead gets captured in your CRM, it's sourced back to the digital channel that drove it in, and it's influenced along the way by display marketing and emails and all these other things you're touching the customer with, that you're recording in your CRM, and you're seeing this at the end of the day show up as a what, Andy? Not a happiness score, but a conversion, right? So anyway, what were your thoughts?
I love your happiness score. That's really
just say it, man. Give me something tangible. I'm not telling the CEO about happiness scores. He or she wants to know what's your freaking conversion, how much revenue you're driving, and how does that reflect on everything else? But anyway, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
I think, to be fair, we put a lot of weight on the back of this little thing called conversion rate. And it's probably, if I'm confessing now, unfair. Because what we didn't do is say, okay, if not conversion, then what other single metric? Right? We presented a few other ideas.
Right.
But what other single metric, if not, I'm not trying to make your argument for you, Brian, but I do think at the end of the day, the conversion rate is a very effective measure. I think one of the challenges is, how do you do it? I mean, we've heard about time delays. Right. We've heard about people browsing. We've heard about all sorts of different ways and cross-channel. I think one of the complications with the conversion rate and fixating too much on it, and we both know there are companies that fixate on conversion rate. It's the thing they report, it's what they laud, et cetera. And that's what we're actually addressing here. Is, should you really focus on conversion rate, almost to the exclusion of other things? I think we're going to see in the polls that, in fact, you can't focus on conversion rate to the exclusion of other things. But if we wanted to be intellectually honest, we should say, okay, if not conversion rate, then what?
Yeah, no, fair enough. My argument on that, Andy, is that if you're focused on it and you measure it right and you're looking cross-channel, by the way, CRM measures all these things. This is closed loop. This is B2B. We know when the customer logs in. We see them going to the call center. We know that when they have sales calls. I'm just saying, guys, I think that's a cop-out, Andy, if you say can't measure it. So,
well, and I want to make one last point here. I think we had the Amazon Google debate recently, right? And it's very much in line with this, because what we sort of concluded was that Google really focuses on the top of the funnel. That's their model. And Amazon really focuses on the bottom of the funnel. That's their model. Amazon has to worry about quality traffic coming to their site, because if you're going to Amazon, you're probably buying something for a purpose, right? So they just ignore the top of the funnel at Amazon, really, and focus on conversion. And they've done okay for themselves. So there isn't really one model here that works. And frankly, it's time for Google to put up or shut up on their obsession with the top of the funnel and just complete disregard for the bottom of the funnel.
All right, fine. Well, so and Jason just attacked the question, by the way, and then Bill Carrier is attacking the question. Everybody's attacking the question. Okay, fine, guys, we get it. It's
but they're not attacking the debate, which was actually quite good.
That's right. So okay, it's time. We got to roll on now. It is. We're going to bring back in a closing statement. We have a closing argument here from Mr. McGlynn, the mauler. We're going to bring him back in. Brian, you have 2 minutes to make a closing argument. Go.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I mean, Andy and Brian, you put it pretty well. There's really it's kind of now what compared to conversion rate. It's what is the additionally do you bring in to make measurements as really a North Star metric. Ultimately, many important things, profitability we have along with conversion rate, we have overall revenue, customer satisfaction, all these things play into it. And clearly you have to look at it from the entire customer journey, piece by piece. Everything plays an important part to look at a healthy e-commerce business. So when you think about it from there, the more you can apply, the more intent you can go into attack that. Everything you can play at every one of those particular stages is what goes in to provide the sum of parts to an excellent e-commerce experience. And really measuring efficiency along how it lines up to the goals is absolutely a key part. I've come back to conversion. If you can drive effective conversion, you can put more digital advertising, you can put more top of funnel, you can make it more effective. And that's where you come into it at this point. By driving it more, ultimately that will drive more profitability, that'll drive more revenue, that'll ultimately drive more. Just get that machine working well through everything you can put at it at this point.
Brian, you handed that silver platter to Mr. Hoare and his happiness team. That is exactly right. We need to make sure we're measuring hard metrics. Thank you, Brian, very much. Okay, guys, it is time for the decision. I love that. It's so awesome. All right. Before we get to what you all voted, right, because we're going to do that in a second, we want to, oh man, I don't want to reveal this, Andy, but we posted the question on LinkedIn, and let's go ahead and share those results. Is conversion the most important metric to focus on? I got crushed. No, it misses e-com's true impact. Interesting. So I think that's what our community said when we posted this out on LinkedIn. Now we need to go and talk about.
But Brian, if we're being fair, like I said, it really, you should compare it to something else. The reason we chose this was because there is an obsession with conversion rate. Right. There are people that just do research on conversion rates. And, that we wanted to kind of address that and say, look, is that worth doing? And I think the answer we've seen here, we're going to see in a second, I haven't seen the results, is that probably it is not. But anyway, let's see.
We will in a second. So I have 3 really quick takeaways for us, and then we can get to the poll results. I think, in terms of summing this up, Andy, there are advantages to conversion rate as a key metric. The first is I think we've got to expand the definition. I've made that case. Right. Second, it's real time. It also, we didn't talk about this too much. It unites the team. It's easy to communicate and it unites the team. I've lived this myself, sat in the seat. We're going to work on a metric, and this metric finally can be cut up and measured in many different ways. It can measure the type of customer. It can be used to how effectively you're acquiring new customers. It can be used as a top of funnel metric to measure the effectiveness of your marketing channels. It can even be measured by customer segment, right? So I believe it, if you're focusing mainly here, it will lift all those other metrics as well, including Andy's happiness score. Anything you want to add to that, Andy, before we get to our poll results?
No, I think it's kind of sad and pathetic that you have to make the argument after the argument's been made. But if it makes it feel better, Brian, well,
I know.
Well, let's get to the results. Then
we got to get to the results. Okay, let's go. Round 1. No.
Don't spend time on it. Round 2.
Round 2. No. Man, they can't predict buyer intent. Okay,
and
fine.
let's
Round
just
3.
see for fun. Okay, Brian. Well,
I got completely obliterated.
I'm going to pronounce this argument at 157 seats.
All right, fine. Okay,
no,
Catherine and Pugilist, you guys kicked our butts, but Brian and Rob, guys, great arguments. Thank you. All right.
No, it was a great debate. I mean, seriously, it was a great debate. I actually heard some things that were very interesting that I hadn't heard before myself. So,
yes.
But let's go ahead and wrap it up, Brian. We got 2 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
we got a couple announcements we want to make here, guys. And thank all of our contenders for joining. And we will see you next time. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time on our next webinar. Andy, it was great to do this with you.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Great debate.